Hey everyone, this is Carla, and welcome to an all new episode of Projectize. I'm your hostess, and Projectize is a project management show running from Mondays through Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it does three things. I cover three things: the business of project management, how businesses use project management, and obtaining project management certification. And this is the final week of February. We're coming on to day 60 or 2 months into the new year. And I wanted to do something about time management because when the ball dropped and January 1st came around, all of a sudden everybody had these new year's resolutions, and so we're 60 days in, and some of us or most of us has fallen off the wagon. But fear not, because as the title implies, how to make more time using project management. I want to focus on two things: crashing and fast tracking. So, for those who are new, those are schedule compression tactics. That means they compress or shorten time. Thank you, Project Queen. Also, since you're in here, could you please put up some emojis so that people can check you out, because she's a fellow project manager. So I'm waiting for her to put in some emojis. Thank you for inviting your followers also. So first is fast tracking, and fast tracking is when you do things in parallel. So you're, instead of doing things one by one or task one by one, you're doing two or three tasks at the same time. There you go with the emojis. Thank you very much, and thank you for the hearts. So with fast tracking, you're doing more than one thing, like two or three things at the same time. So say for instance, you're baking a cake and there's steps to it. Well, instead of, just doing things one by one, what you're doing is, when you're cracking the eggs and you're making the batter, you're also in the midst preheating the oven. And usually, you want to get certain ways into the cake until you do that. So that's fast tracking. So by doing two to three things at the same time, is multitasking. And the reason why I bring that up is because in project management, that's not adversely affecting the critical path where you're slack or you have no room for error. And the critical path is the latest that you can have your project done and it be done on time, and so you won't be late. Now, the second thing I'm going to talk about is crashing, where you do put your task on the critical path, meaning there's no room for error. And the reason why I put that last is because usually, especially at this time of year in February, you can just do fast tracking to catch up. You don't need to really crash anything, especially since even if it's a quarterly objective or task, you still have 1 month remaining because you're only 60 days in and a quarter is 90 days. So I'm going to do a recap for this show for Projectize. And for Projectize show, I'm doing how to make more time using project management. And the two techniques I talked about were fast tracking and crashing. So fast tracking is when you're multitasking. So instead of doing one task, you're doing two to three tasks simultaneously. And as I mentioned, it doesn't affect the critical path or the path that the project timeline takes, where there's no slack and there's no room for error. And if anything is late on that critical path, that makes your project late. So you may have to do more juggling, but it's also less costly in money and time than crashing. The second technique, yes, is crashing, where you are putting things on your critical path, and if anything is delayed, it delays your entire project. And I just want to give one more tidbit. We'll have a thing called a triple constraint. So it's three things: it's time, which is also schedule, scope, and cost. What crashing does is it costs more and it puts you in a situation where your timeline can be delayed, and that's not really good. But since I'm talking here in February, you don't have to. Yeah, it's very costly because you're putting it on a critical path, and people don't understand, when you're putting it on a critical path, there's no room for error. And if it's late, then the whole project is late, and then you're going to have a problem with the sponsor, the client, and everyone. And you, as the project manager, you're responsible for all of that. So what I would recommend is making sure that, if possible, especially right now, we're nearly 60 days in, you should do fast tracking and just try to do two to three things at the same time. And then you can get back on track and just redo your schedule baseline, go to the change control board, submit that, and then because you need to have an approved change request to change a baseline, then once you catch up, you can readjust the baseline, or you can even change the schedule model. You can always do changes, but that's what I would recommend right now. And that's also why I'm doing this Projectize show, so that you could be in the position where if you're 60 days in and you need to catch up, this is a great time, because the longer it gets into the year, the more likely you will probably have to crash instead of doing fast tracking. So this concludes this episode of Projectize. I would like to thank Project Queen for joining me, fellow project manager, giving hearts and inviting her followers. I greatly appreciate it. You can also share this out, as well as follow me here on Periscope at periscope.tv/Carla R. Jenkins. So, and also, if you need any project management help, you can get in touch with me at info@carlarjenkins.com and carlarjenkins.com. On my website, you can click on the work and samples tab to see all the work I do regarding project management. So I would like to thank everyone for watching this episode of Projectize. I greatly appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next live stream video. Goodbye.